We're just waiting for the IIMB guys to come in and do a little bit of, introduction or whatever. Just positioning these webinars and all those kind of things in there. And as soon as we do that, we'll get started. So thank you all for attending, and thanks for waiting.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we can start now. So we'll start now. Yeah. Okay. I can see 72 people have joined. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar today. If you can hear my voice, please type in chat if you can hear my voice. Just type in a chat window. Yeah, as you all know, the topic of today's session is impactful digital transformation of small and medium businesses. And we have a speaker joining with us today is Mr. Jairam. He's an alumnus of IIMB of batch PGP 1994. And he's the founder promoter of Roy Retrievers, an organization focused on impactful business transformation of small medium businesses by helping them adopt meaningful digital technologies. Having worked with organizations such as Microland, Sonata, 3Com, Boeing, Akamai, Fidelity, and Society General, he brings the exposure of a large enterprise but blends it with the heart and soul of small medium businesses to offer cost-effective ROI-based services for the small medium businesses that he works with. He has worked over 30 different. He has worked with 30 different SMB organizations, helping to transform their businesses and help them compete in the increasingly changing and uncertain world. He was the first honorary CEO for the ERP Next Foundation and helped establish ERP Next partners in all 6 continents. ERP Next is arguably the best open source ERP for SMBs. So he's also an animal lover, and he's focused on bettering the lives of street dogs in his community. And he also ensures that the street dogs are vaccinated and they stay healthy. And he's 2 indie dogs and 1 indie. Yeah, he's crazy to spread the love around when there are 3 amazing creators as well. Yeah. Actually, I have my colleague Ankit also joined with me as a co-discussion. If you participants, any of you have any issues joining or anything else, please type in a chat window. And I think, over to you, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Okay, so this presentation is dedicated to Anaga, my niece, who let me borrow her, Windows laptop so that I could do this presentation. We were stuck for a while, so thank you all for joining in. Just one more, and then we'll have crossed the 100 attendees. So I really appreciate it. Thank you all for your time. The one thing I do want to say before I get started is and I just want to, give you complete disclosure, if you will. I am biased towards ERP Next. I simply think that it's the greatest, open source ERP that the world has ever produced. And it is produced by a company, called Frappe Technologies, who the chief catalyst for that, and they're based in Mumbai. So it's, according to me, in about 5 or 6 years' time, this will probably be the biggest project, software project that will come out of India, right? So watch ERP Next. It's not like, we all say that, look, all institutes are great, but the greatest among all of them is IIM Bangalore, right? We also say all nations are great, but the greatest of all of them is India. So similarly is my bias towards ERP Next. So please discount that when you see that being too blatant or too untrue. All right. Okay, we'll get started. So we are talking about impactful digital transformation for SMBs, right? So what is the SMB dilemma, right? There is a whole, bunch of, acronyms and jargons that people can throw at you. Industry 4.0, Internet of Things, Internet of Everything, big data, data analytics, virtual reality, augmented reality, so on and so forth. So which of these technologies should you adopt? What are the consequences of adopting, or more importantly, not adopting any of these particular technologies, right? And is there a specific order, a specific priority in which you should you should adopt these particular technologies. And I just want to say that I have a few presentations. I'll try to blow through this as much quickly as I can, and then we can spend some time on question and answers at the end. Right? Now, before we get into the digital transformation per se, let's look at a few learnings from the pandemic. And I'm sorry if I'm using a lot of cliches here, so bear with me for this particular slide. Reducing working capital requirements is extremely important, right? Most organizations, the richest god in the world, Balaji Venkateshwara, suddenly become month to month, right? So most organizations have, when month to month was okay, and it was in fact supposed to be, optimal and all that kind of stuff, suddenly you found that that month to month approach is not perfectly okay, right? Getting demand driven, material procurement and manufacturing is key to profitability. I have a few clients who produce the finished goods that they need to supply to their customers 2 months ahead of schedule, right? And just imagine what would have happened to them when the pandemic hit, because most of the guys would have said like, sorry, I never said like you could manufacture it. I want you to go a bit slow on that particular thing now, those kind of things. Now, which is the reason why as late as possible manufacturing, preferably just in time, is the order of the day. Most organizations are intuitively configured towards as soon as possible manufacturing. As soon as they get an order, they try to churn it out, right? Drumming up demand and being on top of cash flows is, not just essential for surviving the next couple of quarters, but it's going to be the mantra for the future, right? And there are I'm sorry, there are a few slides at the bottom, and I kind of I just try and, so I'll repeat it out of memory. So all these points were very true even before the pandemic. It's just that the pandemic, is just reinforcing these particular points in a very emphatic way, right? There was another point I forget, but I just move on to the next slide in there. Okay, the digital transformation. Now, why should you do digital transformation? And I just pick on one report, which is KPMG Google report that says like digital SMBs grow profits up to twice as fast as their offline counterparts. And SMBs that are digitally enabled are 50% more likely to cater to clients beyond their city boundaries than offline SMBs, right? And they go on to say that the stages of digital transformation is 4, and I added on a 5th one: offline, connected, enabled, engaged, and then experiential. Offline is they don't have any internet presence, no internet connectivity even, maybe. I don't know if there are any such businesses that exist anymore, but let's think that there are. And then there are the connected ones that are connected to the internet, but do not use social media or do not sell online for business purposes. The enabled ones use, some level of social media for, business purposes. The engaged ones actually leverage the internet quite a bit. They kind of like advertise on the internet. They sell on e-commerce platforms. Somebody is saying can't hear. So I'm sure, you'll figure out how to, hear me. And the final thing is experiential. So people leverage the internet to offer a different kind of experience for their prospects and the customers to experience and interact with the company and the products and the services that they make. Right, so now let's look at the digital landscape. It's very complicated. It's very complicated for enterprises. It is overwhelming for SMBs, right? You have the core processes of an SMB consisting of all of those particular 9 bubbles that you see. And then you have customer interfaces, and customer interfaces, you have to do websites, you have to provide mobile interfaces. Then you have to worry about interfacing with Amazon and Flipkart and Big Basket and Grofers and what have you. And then you have to leverage Instagram and Facebook and WhatsApp and LinkedIn. And each one of them is like different. It's not like what works on Facebook will work on Instagram, on WhatsApp, and so on and so forth. And then you have your supplier and partner interfaces. Then there you have to enable it on the internet, on mobile, on extranets, and so on and so forth. And you have the employee interfaces because that's also equally important. And you have to look at internet and say mobile interface and intranets and all that kind of stuff. And if that wasn't enough, you have a whole bunch of tools and analytics, a whole bunch of jargons and acronyms that people will confuse the heck out of you. Cloud computing, dashboards, analytics, big data, Internet of Things, traceability, GPS, virtual reality, augmented reality, so on and so forth. Right? The hard reality is that it's a bewildering array of technologies. Practitioners, I know friends who have immersed their life in one of these particular technologies, just trying to master. And every time I talk to them and say, oh, I've still got so much to go, there's so much more to learn and all that kind of stuff. And anybody who works for an enterprise know that they have whole groups managing each of these technology areas. Right? It's not a group that manages all of them. They have a group that is just managing website. There is a group that's just managing cloud computing. There is a group that's just managing big data and so on and so forth. Right? Yes, SMBs are somehow expected to tame these technologies, implement them, and thrive, or perish trying. Right? So you see the incongruity of this particular thing. The digital transformation, and I'll just go back maybe a couple of slides to this particular thing. And this is the average of that, the profits that have grown twice as fast as their offline counterparts and 50% more likely to cater to clients. This is the average for the survey, right? The guys who have really enabled digital transformation have seen their businesses increase by an order of magnitude. So don't even look at the exceptions. If you look at just the normal, the average, digital transformation, if you don't do digital transformation, you run the risk of being behind, way behind than your competitors, right? So SMBs have to start somewhere. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, right? Use game theory and theory of constraints. A chain is only as strong as the weakest link. To figure out what digital transformation technologies and techniques can offer the highest impact with the minimum effort and the minimum disruption to your organization and to your ecosystem, right? Identify, and there is another, very close, a buddy of mine, kind of like a collaborator, if you will, from IIM Bangalore, of course. A gentleman called Deepak Nagar, and I don't know if he's on this particular, presentation, but he does this particular part, game theory and theory of constraints, demand-driven materials requirement planning and all that kind of stuff for a living. And he's transformed organizations by an order of magnitude. And he needs digital transformation at the base foundation to be able to do anything at all. So use game theory and theory of constraints, identify the weakest links in your organization and strengthen those links till, well, another part of your organization becomes the weakest link. Like, for instance, if sales is your weakest link and you strengthen that by using digital transformation, then deliveries could become the next weakest link because suddenly you have a whole bunch of orders and the rest of your organization does not have the ability to fulfill these, the orders that you've gotten. But hey, this roundabout, that the weakest link transfers to another part of the organization is actually a good thing because your organization is getting stronger with every iteration. Now, what are the other details? Strengthen those areas that have the maximum impact with the least effort and/or disruption. Focus on the top 3 areas with the maximum return on investment. Be very clear-eyed about what you want to accomplish. So those top 3 areas is what you want to accomplish. You want to accomplish 1 or 2 other areas that don't have that much effort, may not even have that kind of, impact. But while you're doing that, it probably makes sense it's synergistic for you to do that. So you have to be very clear-eyed about the scope of your digital transformation. And be very clear-eyed about what you're not going to do. And that is extremely important, because once you get onto it, and then I see a lot of people taking on an ERP implementation and they try to do everything. And that is impossible to be able to accomplish everything when you do digital transformation or an ERP implementation. And why are you doing ERP or digital transformation? Because you want to get independent of people, right? You want to be system driven, and you want to be kind of like process driven, and you want to do all of that particular thing, and you want to depend less on your people, not with an idea that you want to make people dispensable, but with the idea that empowering your people to by freeing them up with clerical tasks, to be focused on more strategic things for your organization, so that they could accomplish more, they could help you accomplish more, right? But unfortunately, while you're trying to be process driven and less people driven, you have to rely on your people for your digital transformation initiative to be successful. Because people feel threatened by digital transformation. People feel threatened by the implementation of a Salesforce automation system or an ERP system or a CRM system, because it makes them less important, or that's what they think initially, in the eyes of the organization. So what is the first step of your digital transformation journey? Right? So all this bewildering technologies, forget it, get to the core. Digitize your core processes. Your core processes is CRM, accounting, sales, buying, HR, inventory or stock, support, service, and manufacturing. Depending on your organization, if you're a service-based organization, you'll have more of support and service and less of manufacturing and less of stock. If you're a manufacturing organization, you obviously have to focus more on the manufacturing and the stock, side of things. If you're using, spreadsheets and word processors in your organization to do your processes, but if you're engaged with your clients very well digitally and all that kind of stuff, I mean, like, okay, great. But then if your digital initiatives work and you're flooded with orders, stop, pause for a moment and think if you have the ability, if you have the wherewithal to be able to deliver on those particular demand generation activities that you've done on the internet and on the digital media, right? And try to integrate all areas, not just interlink, right? But I do want to say one thing. If you have existing areas, like, for instance, you already have Salesforce.com or Zoho for your Salesforce automation, don't try to replace that in the initial phases. Just leave it aside, because it doesn't take too much effort to take an output from that particular system and upload it on your other system. So, but try to interlink and try to minimize the number of systems that you will have, outside when you're doing your digital transformation, right? And please remember that what you implement here on your core processes is what is going to interact with the rest of the world tomorrow. It'll interact with your customer interfaces on one side. It'll have to interact with your tools and analytics on the other side, and your suppliers and partners, and also your employees. So if you try to implement something too complicated, too expensive over here, it's likely to be an order of magnitude and increase in expenses when you move to integrating your ecosystem with your organization. So be very judicious, be very cheap when you try to implement anything in your core processes, because this is just the first part of the journey. The real journey is over here, right? Now, how do you do an impact and effort-based implementation? So do a 2x2 matrix. That is what IIMB teaches us all the time, right? So it says, like, put everything on a 2x2 matrix. So put an impact and put an effort matrix. Just notice that the effort is like high on, low on the higher side, so that instinctively you can go to the third quadrant and say that is what we need to that's what we can implement with minimal, minimal effort, maximum impact, and all that kind of stuff in there. So the high impact, low effort, and then you have to look at high impact, high effort, and then low impact, low effect, and anything that is high effort and low impact is best avoided, right? What are the areas, for instance, sales, buying, and HR are things that you can do very easily. It's not very hard at all. And when it comes to sales, you don't need any fancy, things when you look at sales force automation. According to me, most organizations, if you can get your pipeline going, your funnel going very well, like what is going to close, who's the client, who are the contact guys, what do we need to do, what is the order value, and if you can get that reviewed week on week basis, I think it's a huge win for an organization, any organization. And I've seen quite a few medium-sized to large organizations that don't have a good answer around that. Now, what are the ones with the fourth quadrant, which is the configure, price, quote, is one area that is high effort but high impact. Cost accounting. If you're able to figure out, the cost of each of the products that you're able to make, right, on a real-time basis, not at the end of the period, not at the end of the month or end of the quarter or end of the year when it's too late to figure out that you're not really making money on a particular product, but you're able to get that on a live basis, on a day-to-day basis. You can avoid the products that are not making you money and focus on the products that are making you money. So it's kind of very important. Inventory is another area. Most organizations have millions of rupees in their inventory, in their stock, in their warehouses, but they have 20,000 bucks in their petty cash box, and they have a lock on the petty cash box, and their stores is totally open, right, for anybody to walk in, do anything they want with that whole thing. And I see that incongruity, and when I talk to people, they tell me, yeah, but that is money, right? What's anybody going to do with my inventory and all that kind of stuff? But your inventory is sucking up your working capital, and it's tempting your people to be inefficient. And that's the other thing, that is happening. Manufacturing. So that's another area where, it's a high impact, high effort. But if you get that streamlined, it can be transformative for your organization. Traceability, if you're like in healthcare, if you're in pharmaceuticals, if you're in food processing, you have to have batch numbers, serial numbers, a whole bunch of things. And you need to be able to track all of that, very well. And that again is high impact and high effort. So step one is implement digitization in areas that are high impact and high effort. While doing so, accomplish the other areas that are high impact and low effort, like we talked about sales, buying, and HR. Right? Inventory, cost accounting, manufacturing are the most obvious choices. Do not disturb existing areas that are already digitally transformed. So while having a single system and reducing the number of systems is very important, I think it's very important for you to ensure that you're digitized in all your areas first before you can even talk about streamlining and integrating your different areas. Step two, redraw the impact effort matrix. Go back to your goal theory, theory of constraints, and see what is the biggest impact, what is the minimum amount of effort that is involved, what will be the minimum amount of disruption for your ecosystem as a whole. And this time, some external interfaces can be added. You can add website, operation-specific apps, right? Like, for instance, there is, Akshay Patra, Akshay Kalpa, I'm so sorry, that does organic milk, and they have a, way by which you can order organic milk on the app, directly. You could integrate RFID to make things like traceability a breeze for your organization. And then pick the next three high impact, high effort areas while implementing the other ones, which is high impact, the low effort areas. And put focus on reducing the number of systems to one or two in your organization. This is when you start thinking about integrating your various systems together. And repeat process till adequate coverage is obtained. Right? Depending on the organization, a few of these things could be important. Selling on Amazon could be important if you're B2B. I'm sorry, if you're B2C. LinkedIn could be very important if you're B2B, right? Website could be important for everybody. Connecting up with your partner and suppliers could be important, depending on your supply chain. These tools and analytics is going to be important for almost everybody. So keep repeating this process till you have adequate coverage. Now, let's map this, so all that sounds very, very interesting or very complicated. But let's just map this onto a company, a fictitious company that I came up with called Nimbus Fabrications Pvt. And I like this because fabrications in the cloud, that's like so, conflicting with each other, right? So now Nimbus Fabrications does, they do this theory of constraints and they realize that their sales is their biggest constraint. So they do a simple thing, which is to do sales funnel tracking. They do email and LinkedIn newsletters, Facebook and Instagram, posts and all that kind of stuff. And then suddenly, in a month or two, they suddenly have a lot of, lot of interest. They've generated a lot of demand. But now their proposal mechanism is the biggest constraint. So from when they could turn around a proposal in one day, which is what customers typically would expect, they're now stuck at turning around things in 2 weeks. And by the time they get back to their clients, the client has already forgotten or moved on. And they said like, oh, yeah, I did. Yeah, send it to me. I'll get back to you and all those kind of things in there. So what they did was they kind of like implemented a configure price quote tool so that their internal people could start doing attributes and, generating a proposal and a bill of materials from the CPQ, the configure price quote tool. And boom, they're now able to turn around a quotation in less than a day. And in the meanwhile, they've enabled virtual walkthroughs of their fabrications. Let's say they do something like kitchen cabinets or something like that. So they're now, because of the pandemic, nobody is coming into their experience centers and all that kind of stuff. So they've figured out a way by which they can offer virtual walkthroughs. And they're able to offer it on the web. And now suddenly customers can do their own walkthroughs. They can select the attributes. They can generate a quote for themselves. They don't even need their internal people, the pre-sales people, to make their own proposals. So this is customer self-service. So they do that. Your customers look, come in, they look at the kitchen cabinet and they say, I want this in yellow, I want this in blue, I want this in green. And then they say, okay, this is the beautiful configuration that I think will work for me, and they press a button, and boom, they get a price, they get a quote. And once that quote fructifies, and there is, you have financial closure on that particular proposal, and it turns into an order, you as an organization press another button, and that converts into a bill of material straight away. So look at the way things can work if you kind of like plan your digital transformation and very cleverly. But you did all that. Now proposals are all kind of like turned around in one day, and orders have started piling up. So obviously delivery is a constraint for you at this particular stage. So now what do? You get Deepak Nagar, like I said, in, and he kind of like does a demand-driven materials planning for you, and he's able to reduce your working capital. He's able to streamline, and he's able to reduce working capital for you. Now you have a whole bunch of working capital, but your manufacturing is your biggest constraint. So you use ordering process and manufacturing, and you're able to move the constraint to the installation. So now you're ready to deliver, but installation is a big problem, right? And when you ship things to your clients, there are things that are missed out. There are like fasteners that are, that are missed out. There are like tools that are not, that are sent out to the site. And the site installation people have to go make local purchases, and they have to come back and they have to try to do the best thing that they could possibly do. And that takes a lot of time, and they are not able to move on to the next installation in the time, that you wish that they could. So what you do is you use digital transformation again, and you do full kit tracking. and you're able to send in the shipment the entire kit, so that all the installation people have to do is to show up at the installation site, finish their installation, because it's got everything that is necessary in there. In the minimum time it takes, you have figured out a way how to figure out that whether the site is ready or not, and you only send your installation people to the site when the site is ready, and suddenly, you know what? Your labor is your biggest constraint. So you don't have enough number of people to be able to do all the things that you want them to do. So you tap into an online labor network and you increase reach and reduce costs of your site installation. And boom, suddenly, you know what? You're able to deliver. You're a well-oiled, lean, mean machine, delivery machine. And guess what? Now you have overcapacity, so your sales becomes a constraint again. So it completes the cycle completely, right? So I just wanted to talk for maybe about 30 minutes and then, open it up for questions and answers, because I'm sure that all of us don't have, long attention spans, right? So I'll just take another 5 minutes and then open it up for questions and, in here. So what is the recommended solution that you need for your core processes? It obviously needs to be web-based. It should be open source, according to me, because then your money works a lot harder for you, right? But there is no rule that it's got to be open source. It's got to be web-based, of course. You should be able to implement it on a public cloud. You should be able to implement self-hosted if you want. Or if you're so conservative, you want to have your ERP and your digital transformation system on a server on your premises, you should be able to implement that on premises as well, right? You should be able to access, the ERP or whatever system that you implement on a browser, right? You don't need to have very specific apps to be able to be downloaded and and installed to use all of these. Browser or a smartphone should be good enough. And you should be able to connect it with external systems over REST API, open source, and tools like REST API, webhooks, and all those kind of things in there, right? So, there are two very important ERPs that I can think of. One of them I'm totally aligned with. The other one I have a good, reasonably good understanding of. And I'll do a quick comparison of these two open source ERPs, right? And that I'm biased towards ERP Next, so please factor that into your due diligence. Is it web-based and cloud-based? Both ERP Next and Odoo are completely web-based and cloud-based. Is it open source? ERP Next is completely open source. Odoo is kind of open source. They have a lot of partners. They have a partner ecosystem. So the partner ecosystem offers a lot of these particular widgets and other things, which is great. But ERP Next has got a different philosophy of trying to integrate all of those particular things into the core offering itself, so that you don't need to, talk to 5 different people to get a solution, and neither do you have to deal with the integration by having to, talk to 5 different partners. What kind of integrations are possible on ERP Next? You have WooCommerce on your, which is that WordPress thing. You have Shopify, you have Amazon, so you can actually sell on Amazon, integrate very easily with Amazon. You can accept payments, do things on PayPal. Google Contacts and ERP Next can sync up very well. Calendar can sync up very well. There's a little bit of integration involved. Magento is not yet supported out of the box, but there are quite a few partners who have achieved Magento, implementation, and it's very easy to do that. Stripe, Dropbox, Amazon S3, Webhooks, Play, you have Stripe there. Well, all of these are integrated on ERP Next. Odoo, because of the fact that they have been around a lot longer, they are like also venture capital funded, and they have a different model. They have a whole bunch of integrations, but those integrations are not part of the core offering. So you need to worry about integrations, and you need to worry about making it all work together, right? The mobile version of ERP Next is available on all versions, and ERP Next, Frappe Technologies has got its own cloud hosted. It's called Frappe Cloud. It's available on that. It's available on your self-host. It's available on-premises install. Whereas Odoo only enables it for your enterprise version. I'm reasonably certain that somebody would have hacked it, and they might have a way by which you can access Odoo on your mobile, without the enterprise version, on the community version. Full accounting, is ERP Next free? Yes, it is. And you can download and install it yourself. You can use Frappe Cloud, and and where they charge you very nominally, very cost effective. Or you can talk to a service provider of ERP Next who can host it for you if you have a lot of customizations and integrations that you have to do. Now, full accounting is available on ERP Next on all versions, whereas on Odoo only the enterprise version support gives you full accounting. In HR, payroll and appraisals are available on all versions on ERP Next, whereas in Odoo enterprise version. Look, I'm reasonably certain I've done this with a bias towards ERP Next, so don't believe this completely. Odoo is also a great piece of software. They do a lot of things very well. So please do evaluate and do your due diligence on Odoo if you're looking at implementing an open source ERP, independently. Right now, I have a bunch of case studies, and and I'll just run through, maybe take 30 seconds on each of them. A machinery manufacturer which has got 200 different parts, using digital transformation is able to come down to the point to say that the cost of making this particular material, this particular machine on the raw material side is 18,42,342.86, which is brilliant for an organization, which is for a small medium business. Large organizations struggle to get this kind of information. Reduce working capital requirements. The made-to-order retail software furniture manufacturer was not very comfortable with, ordering together for all their projects, or say on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis. They were very comfortable doing project-based ordering. So they used to order too soon, and they used to order too much. Right, despite the fact that 80% of the raw material is common across projects and other 20% is specific to each project. So what they did was they used digital transformation to build a template to track the probability of closure of each project, and they used BOM, bill of materials, to convert this into raw materials. So now you suddenly say these are the common material, and you could arrive at a way by which you could say that if I buy these raw material, right, and you could use the lowest common denominator quantities for all of those, you can reasonably be sure that you would have covered 70 to 75% of all the projects that you have given quotations for. So irrespective of which order fructifies, you can already have 70 to 75% of the raw material for that particular project in your warehouse with minimal risk, right? So order project-specific raw material at the last when deliverables are confirmed, when the site is ready, and a whole bunch of other things, right? And the organization was able to free up 2 crores worth of working capital. That translates into about 28 lakh rupees in interest charges that hits their P&L. Traceability. An FRP fabricator was not being favored upon by its clients because it could not show traceability with confidence, right? It could not say that the raw material that it was using was was not expired. So these are shelf life items, active components, right? So what they did was they turned on batches and implemented an Android-based app and barcode labels to eliminate errors and conclusively demonstrate traceability. So the organization now has become a preferred supplier with its customer and increased order booking and revenues by 20%. Customer self-service. A flow line equipment manufacturer for the oil and gas industry has to provide a lot of certifications for its products that it makes, right? Certificate of conformity, test reports, whole bunch of things that need to be shipped. And they typically ship these certificates along with the products, along with the shipment, along with the consignment. But oftentimes customers misplace this, they need this again because there is an audit coming up and all that kind of stuff. And they harassed this particular organization to provide them these certificates. So what this organization did was it turned on batches, implemented, to demonstrate traceability. I'm sorry, this is cut and paste error. I really apologize. So the outcome of this particular thing is that the client organizations could actually download the certificates of conformance by logging into their customer portal. And that is like huge for the organization, because all this organization has to do is to enable it. And whenever somebody calls and says like, I want this particular certificate of conformance, they just help them through to the customer portal and show them that particular thing and walk them through and say, this is how you can download it yourself. And that is brilliant, because the next time around, the customers are not even going to bother you. They're just going to log in themselves, and they're going to be able to help themselves. And that is kind of like brilliant for this particular organization. That's about all. Here's my number, my email, and very happy to interact with you. And I am very happy to open this up for questions. Stay as long as you want. Ask as many questions as you want, and I'll be very happy to answer them. I think you have to type out your questions. Or Sushma, are we going to open up the mic and get people to ask questions, or do they have to type it out?
They have to type the question, sir.
Yeah. So if you have any questions, please start typing it out. If you don't have any questions, we can end this session as soon as people start disappearing. Any questions, please? And well, so let's go by financial services. Somebody said, what is the applicability of these particular things in financial services? Right, customer self-service for the financial, for the financial services industry, right? So if you could just get in and put in, I'm just right now talking to, a CA organization, and they're not clear tax, they're not like TurboTax or any of those kind of things. So their whole thing was personal touch, and you could collect the documents by email and all that kind of stuff, and file taxes for individuals and for organizations. But now with the pandemic, everybody's a little scared. So this organization, which wanted the personal touch, was now wanting to put a portal by which but their clients can go in and they can answer a bunch of questions and then upload those particular documents. So that is one area. The other area is a loan application. The cost of loan applications can be reduced phenomenally if you kind of like enable digital transformation, if you get customers to go do that themselves. Okay, I'm going to go to the next question. I don't know if I answered that completely. Find this a little difficult to scroll. So I don't mean to ignore anybody. Is an ERP solution needed for a trust which is receiving online donations? Can there be any benefit to such an implementation? How much of an effect is, well, a lot of organizations, religious organizations, charitable organizations are implementing ERP, simply because they want to keep a track of all of these particular things, and ensuring that, the money reaches the bank and a whole bunch of other things. You're talking about online donations, so there is not much of it, this thing in there, not much of a elimination that happens out of that particular thing. But if you're in the real world, if you're looking at a trust, which is receiving online donations, just being able to provide visibility to your donors as to how their pledges or the donations is being utilized, and how it is being deployed, and what is the return on investment, if you will, of those particular things, could increase donation by a huge amount. I know that it's very hard to be able to do that. There is a lot of work that is involved, but if you can do that, it can change things for you quite a bit. Somebody's asking me as to whether a street side, grocery shop can benefit from digital transformation. I mean, like, I go to my shop on the, a few paces away from my apartment, and half the time she's giving me bread and other things that have expired, right? So now I don't know how that works for a grocery store, whether he can just give it back to his distributor and he will replace that, or whether there is a cost to it. So just giving this particular grocery store the ability to keep a track of his stocks, his expiry dates, and all that kind of stuff could ensure that his profitability increases to a very large extent, right? So is it easy to do that? No, it is not easy to do that. But if you're able to do that for shop, it is transformative. People can order in this kind of an environment. He can enable web ordering, and he can do fulfillment, and so there are a whole bunch of advantages to that. Are MSMEs in India adopting digitization? You'd be surprised. A lot of people are adopting digitization. They are, they are on the cutting edge of digitization. A lot of people use social media to drum up business, and that is a form of digitization as well. Many companies which are changing course, leave support functions way behind. Can you give? I'm sorry, I can't scroll this very well. Well, so support functions, yeah. If you look at one of the areas where I think digital transformation can help most organizations. I've never seen an organization, even amongst the organizations that I work with. So I should confess that failure on my part as well. That has got a simple thing, very simple thing: attendance, leave, payroll, and employee expenses and settlement, all sorted out very well. The C-level the C-level manager in these organizations has given up long ago, and there is actually a troop of people who take care of all of these particular things in there, right? So there are one or two people. So there is somebody who's manually doing the attendance, and that particular person is one king over there or queen over there. Everybody goes to him and gives him chocolate or flowers and all that kind of stuff, and he's able to change things, right? He was a little late. He's able to say that he was on time and all those kind of things in there. Yeah, support functions, your people are the biggest beneficiaries of digital transformation, and you have to take your people along, and you have to make a difference to them. You have to make a difference to their lives as well. You have to free them up to be able to do bigger, better things for you as an organization. And that is when they feel empowered. That is when they will stay on, because you are pushing them constantly outside their comfort zone in a very supportive way. And you're giving them tools and technologies that are cutting edge, and with which they are able to accomplish a lot more, both for themselves and for your organization. Government is currently focusing on MSMEs. What's the effect of it on India's employment rate? I really have no idea, I'm sorry. So I will not answer questions that doesn't fall in my core area. But I'm sure there are others who could help you with that. Are there any integrations with ERPs with MailChimp to optimize sales and marketing? I'm sure there is somebody who's already developed that, or somebody who can develop that for a very small amount of money. What is the role of AI on digitization of SMBs in India? Boss, please, I kind of like don't even talk about all of these kind of things when it comes to digital transformation in India. According to me, the digital transformation in India, the first part of that particular thing is, doing your core processes. Digitizing this particular process is the first step, because only when you have structured data, if you're using spreadsheets and work processors, crunching any kind of data is a nightmare. So if you want to really do any artificial intelligence, big data, and all those kind of things, you first need to have a structured data in your organization. So most SMEs in India, right, that need to do digital transformation, according to me, needs to focus on this particular area, not any of the other things. Maybe one other thing that you may need to focus on is, depending on whether if you're selling on Amazon and Flipkart, and if you have your own website, you may want to integrate that particular thing. But for you, digital transformation is getting out of spreadsheets and word processes. Many companies have not standardized processes, so digitization is hard. Actually, it's a chicken and egg, because you have a process by which you have spreadsheets and word processors which give you a lot of flexibility and no control. You are in effect letting your people do whatever they want, right? So that is the reason why you don't have standardized processes. Look, you'd be amazed at how 3 of my made-to-order clients, one making retail furniture, another making control panels, electrical control panels, and the third one making kitchen cabinets, are so similar in their rhythms. You could take a single process and apply it across all 3 of them, right? And it will fit in wonderfully well. Do they have the ability to fit into this particular process? They did initially when they were using spreadsheets and word processors, but right now you can. I'm sorry, it just forces me to look at the last one, right? So I don't mean to be. Kiran is asking me, what percentage of the revenue or SMBs willing to spend on digitization? It's a very small amount, Kiran. An insignificant amount. The main reason for that is that they're being taken for a ride, and by all their service providers and all the various technologies. So they are not really sure about return on investment on their digitization efforts. So if people really take care to demonstrate return on investment and put return on investment ahead of anything else, SMBs are definitely willing to spend on digitization. Up to 2%, not more than that. Okay. By what time? Oh, Anurag asked me what time a developing country like India would go fully digitalized, right? Well, if you kind of embrace open source, it can happen a lot faster, right? How long will it take? I'm sorry, sir. Your guess is as good as mine. My guess is as good as yours. I'm sorry. Any other questions? Any other thoughts, comments? Because we're hitting on the 1 hour mark. So if somebody asked a question and I didn't answer that, can you please type that out again? Okay, what do you mean integrate and not just interlink? Oh, I'm on the right slide for that particular thing. Now, let us say you had Tally for accounting. You had Salesforce for managing sales. You had Zoho for managing CRM. You had Great HR for managing your HR, right? And you had spreadsheets for managing your stock. And you had spreadsheets for manufacturing for managing your manufacturing, right? Now, that is you still kind of partially digital, right? So you have Salesforce, you have Tally, all of those kind of things in there. But Tally doesn't talk to Salesforce, Salesforce doesn't talk to Zoho, Zoho doesn't talk to Great HR, and making it all work together is going to take a lot of time, and you have to involve a lot of people. So what I would say is look at one system or maybe 2 maximum that can take care of your entire processes, right? And there are systems like Odoo, right? And I don't even I implement Odoo, but I'm putting them ahead first. And ERP Next that can do the entire thing. So ERP Next can do all of these things for you. Odoo can do all of these things for you. Both Odoo and ERP Next can build you this. They can help you integrate with, they're already cloud computing ready. They can help you integrate with websites, with Amazon and Flipkart and social media and, and your customers and all those kind of things in there. So, so that is what it means. Don't just interlink, but integrate. Okay, I'll scroll down and see if there are any further questions. Udo is not Chinese. I don't think we should even worry about that particular thing. I think Zoom is Chinese and they do partially Chinese. I don't think we should worry about that. Atmanirbhar is very important. Of course, we need to be self-sufficient. We need to do things in the country, but not at the cost of discriminating against any other country. But we should obviously discriminate for our own country, and there is nothing wrong with that particular thing. But Udo is not Chinese; it's a Finnish company. If an approach of organization expertise, market research, and business strategy is developed, reviewed before, before, I'm sorry, I'm not very good at scrolling this particular thing. So a lot of people don't do that particular stuff, right? When they especially looking at, say, an open source implementation, only because open source implementation is very inexpensive. So they don't give a lot of time, for that particular thing. But yes, you're absolutely right. You need to, do a system study. You need to take your people into account. You need to do a lot of things and figure out how ready you are for digital transformation and ERP implementation. Is business analytics a must for digitization of SMEs? No, but you need digitization definitely if you want to do any kind of business analytics for organizations. Most of my organizations, the places where I've implemented, there are 3 stages to implementing a digital transformation initiative. The first stage is build, the second stage is run, and the third stage is ROI, right? If you look at an ERP implementation, unless and until you focus on the ROI stage, your ERP will become a glorified billing system. And if you ask me, 80% of the ERPs, even in large enterprises, are just that, they are glorified billing systems. The organizations don't do a lot of business analytics. They don't look at the data that an ERP is providing for them and do interventions that are appropriate and necessary to be able to actually get an ROI. Digital transformation and ERP is like buying a calculator, right? The calculator does not have an ROI. The ROI that you get on a calculator depends on the numbers that you punch into the calculator, and then look at the number that the calculator throws back at you, and you have to use those numbers within your business to be able to get the ROI from your calculator, right? A calculator by itself is just, a paperweight, right? That's all it does. An ERP and a digital transformation, initiative for your organization is exactly that. It doesn't have an ROI by itself. It all depends on what you do with it, what data you manage to get out of it, how you interpret that data, and what you do with that data in terms of intervention, in terms of initiatives for your organization. And that is what is going to, decide on ROI. And for that, yes, you need business analytics, but you can't do any business analytics, or you can't do much business analytics if an organization is totally on spreadsheets, because it's very difficult to analyze unstructured data. All right, any other questions? Well, examples where they've enabled support functions, HR, and just self-service, ensuring that you don't make mistakes on payroll, ensuring that you're able to empower your people, you're able to do career planning, a whole bunch of things. Is where organizations have used support functions. Another area is service. Service organizations or service field force people are very underappreciated, but you could use digital transformation technologies to ensure that they have all the tools and the technologies that are necessary for them to be very effective and very professional in front of their clients. All right, I think we're time's up. 4 o'clock. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and I hope you know, it was worth your time. I enjoyed presenting it, and thank you for all of you. Thank you very much. Sushma, I'll let you take over.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking your time and presenting as a webinar. Yeah, I just sent one feedback form to all of you. I request all the participants to fill out the form. Yeah, and the session has been recorded and it will be uploaded in YouTube and the IIMB alumni webinars channels, because some of you have asked the presentation, so you can just access the record in a couple of days, the file in YouTube.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Bye now.
Bye, sir. Bye.